My dad was like, yeah, if you're having memory problems, what year is it? And my mom couldn't recall the year. She began to cry. She was really struggling. And for me, that was the moment that everything just kind of stopped.
You're listening to the Almost 30 podcast, a lifestyle podcast hosted by Krista Williams and Lindsay Simsick.
Tune in for a new episode every Tuesday to hear our honest conversations about topics like wellness, entrepreneurship, spirituality, and self-development with guests who are really smart, really inspirational,
and really fucking funny. It's real, it's raw, and it's unfiltered.
Inspired by our transition from our 20s to our 30s, we realized it's so much more than that. Our mission is to provide you with the tools, guidance, and motivation to help you navigate any transitions in your life and propel your personal growth.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Almost 30 podcast.
Here we go. Hey everyone, we just wanted to take a moment and shout out one of our favorite podcasts. There was an episode that was out recently that really impacted us. We recently had on Maura Aarons-Mealy. She has the podcast Hiding in the Bathroom. You can find it on iTunes or go to hidinginthebathroom.com. What do you think? This
one is cool. We just wanted
crazy.
to bring to light some other women, just to kind of highlight other people. But this one was with Cindy Gallop, who wants to talk about disrupting aging. So Cindy Gallop is a former advertising executive who now runs a website called Make Love Not Porn. So she is in the social and sex tech space. So she's really changing how people perceive porn online and the effect that it's having on people.
Yeah, and they also talk about ageism and how it shouldn't just be a conversation for people who are, over 50. It's a conversation for everyone, because you could be a 25-year-old not feeling like you can speak in a boardroom, or you could feel like you're 60 and are being replaced. There's a lot of points to talk about within that conversation, and she does it so eloquently, and she's just kind of shouting from the rooftops. She's had so much experience. So you can go to hidinginthebathroom.com or find Hiding in the Bathroom on iTunes. Maura is a force. And if you listen to our episode with her, you will know. And we just want to, shout her out. We love her podcast and we love what she's doing. Greetings.
Lindsay just ordered Genius Foods. What'd you order?
I ordered papaya salad.
Oh, that's so nice.
And I ordered the fresh, like we would have gotten at Thai Vegan, but the veggie roll with the rice paper shit.
So good.
Anyway, it's 9 p.m. here. We're recording an intro.
Hey guys, if you want to hear what fit models and workout instructors eat, listen to this podcast. Lindsay orders.
Seriously, it's fucked up. And then I was going to go rogue and get 8 dumplings. And I was like, all right, Linz, it's 9 o'clock at night. You don't want
Dumplings are delicious for their texture. Not really for the taste, but for texture.
Texture, man.
Texture purposes only. Warm, soft. I've had 0 dumplings in my life, but I look at them and I can imagine that they're delicious. So I want to tell you guys about some of the magic that's been happening in my life. Today was magical. So this is where I brag on the podcast. Just kidding. But so lately my mantra before I go to bed is I am a witness to miracles. So I've been really focusing and honing in on miracles being natural, bringing magic into my life. That was really what I wanted to do in 2018. So this is so silly, but I just know that it was something. So yesterday, when I was on my way home from work, I called my mom, and she's the most challenging relationship in my life, to be completely honest. And we've been kind of going back and forth on this travel issue. We're going to Montreal as a family. My parents are divorced, but they traveled together. So you can imagine, what kind of storms are brewing. So she answers and she's says something, that sets me off. Just right away answers the phone, says something that sets me off. And it had been building a little bit. And I've been doing well over the years to kind of taper that and, be patient and calm. But it's really easy with, paternal relationships to fall back into old habits. And as soon as I started to kind of go off, I was like, well, and kind of went off a little bit. I lost the call. So the call was lost. So the call dropped.
Whew.
And I just sat there and was like, okay. Like, oh.
Took a breath
Okay.
instead.
Took a breath. Took a minute. She called back. And I had assumed something based on what she had started to say and based on our past that wasn't actually true. So when I actually let her talk, she wasn't saying something that was pissing me off. She said something that was like helpful. And I was like, damn, if I would have just gone with that, it would have completely ruined the conversation. And I was assuming something that wasn't true.
Wow.
It was just like such a magic moment. I was like, that was an angel dropping the call. You know what I mean? It was something that was intercepting to like drop that call. And today I had our handy cleaner. So I use Handy app to clean. If you're on our secret Facebook group, I've shared the link. But basically it's an app that schedules cleaners. And they're usually amazing and helpful. And it's $60 for like a room or for like a 1-room apartment. And it saves my relationship. And the girl comes today and she is like so cute. She's adorable. And she's just like, she was late and it was fine. But I'm like, hey, how's it going? Like, let you in. She's like, I'm sorry I'm late. I've been having, boyfriend issues. And we ended up talking for like 35 minutes.
Damn.
And I was just sitting there. I was almost going to be late for our recording. And I was, 5 minutes late. But I was just sitting there and I was like thinking to myself, like, I'm meant to be in this situation. You know what I mean? I'm meant to be listening.
Any long conversations that I feel like I am fighting with myself over, like I want to get out of them, especially lately, I'm like, whoa, let's be here because there is totally a purpose. It's usually with someone who talks too much and I'm like, oh God. But then it turns into something where I'm just blown away. I'm inspired. They needed my help. I needed their help, like something. Totally. That's incredible.
It was incredible. The conversation was incredible. She was incredible. It's just being a mirror for people. And I'm not an expert in any space, but like I definitely have compassion for people. And it's very visible when you're talking to me, when you're in that situation, if you're going to be vulnerable and we're a stranger, the compassion could like help. You know what I mean? It's just being like a listening ear for someone. It was just such a good day. I had like a few of those experiences that were just so meaningful and that connection, whereas, I could have walked out on my phone. Hey, gotta go. Got my earbuds in, texting, been like, bye.
Think of how many people do that. They kind of miss all of the opportunities to grow in like the tiny moments. And they just whiz through because they're in a rush, because they don't want to hear it, because they have their earbuds in, because they're looking at their phone. Yeah, that's like actually mind blowing.
I know. I actually have been obsessed with the phone thing lately. If you walk around on the street, every person is on their phone.
Yeah, it freaks me out.
It's really starting to freak me out. I don't know.
I think it's more like,
and
I see it more I saw it more in New York because you just do.
Yeah, you see
but here,
too.
Here you see it, of course. But I think it's so like nice out here a lot that like, I find myself just kind of like looking up to the sky because I'm like, I
love that.
You know what I mean? But yes, people, of course, are on their phones. Yeah. What do you do?
I don't know.
What can we do?
What do you do?
Should we start a movement?
Yeah. What would it be like? But then it's hard because
no phone festival.
Because I walk I try and walk, to my workout class in the morning, and that's my phone time.
I know.
It's bad because I'm walking. That's my phone time. I don't really have a lot of phone time through the day besides like.
But like you're being productive. It's not like you're fucking around. You're not fucking around.
Yeah, I'm not like looking at shit. I don't know. It's really hard, but.
Yeah.
So yeah, I encourage you to invite more magic into your life and to believe it.
That.
When you see it. Could be crazy. Coincidence? I think not.
I have been vowing to kind of push myself. I'm really good at avoiding things that are good for me, and meaning like that I know will feel good.
Yeah.
I just kind of avoid like throwing myself into them. So today, there's a girl that works at Soul Cycle. She's works at the front desk, and she is a singer-songwriter. And she reached out to me. She's like, I would love to like write with you and sing with you. And like, I write very not frequently. So I was like, oh God, like what's it going to be like if I show up and like, I have something that I've written and what if it's stupid? And she's like, oh, why am I writing? You know what I mean? Just all the things came up. And she's just this like sweet, sweet girl. And she, like a few days before, she's like, hey, like I wanted to give you like a prompt, like kind of like give you something to write about, you know, almost as if she could feel that like I was like
that's cool.
hesitating, but like I wasn't to her. I was just internally hesitating. And she's like, you know, I want you to, and I'm going to think about something that like weighs heavy on you. And maybe it's not at the forefront of your mind all the time, but just something that's like maybe for a while has been weighing heavy on you and write about it. And at first I was like, no, like, cause things are going really well right now. Like in all areas, I feel like pretty in flow and open and just things are good. So I was like, oh, what? So I did. And I wrote about some like personal stuff and it was beautiful. And she was like so kind and guided me through the process. And we wrote this song and we're eventually going to like perform it. It was so cool. I was just like, cool. I love you for being my little angel that brought me out of like my dark cave of I can't. And I was like, you are amazing. She lost her mom 5 years ago very suddenly. Like, and she's so strong when she talks about it. I was just like, whoa, there's so much like strength in you. And yeah, it was just like nice. And I like disconnected, you know, I was like, oh God, I had so much to do. Like I had podcast stuff to do. I had other stuff to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this hour and a half and just like sit with her and like do this. It was great. That's all.
I love that.
Yeah, it was nice. Just
sing it.
So
it's a little like this
and a little like that. My life is so crap. No, it's great. We're excited today. Let's hop in. Sorry. Do you like it listening to us chat?
Yeah.
I think they'd love it.
That's why you're here.
I freaking love it. We love you guys so much. Yo, freaking group.
Hey, shout out to the Canada Almost 30 group.
Oh my God, they're meeting up.
Yeah,
I'm freaking out.
You guys freaking out. Toronto meetups are happening. All of the posts that you guys do on your Instagram, you like tag us and you reference people that are in the episodes are insane.
I know. And the people who are on the podcast and get all of these tags are like blown away.
Yeah.
It just fills them up. Like, I don't know, guys.
Yeah.
Come over.
Yeah.
Let's hang.
Literally. We're just here being channels. Yeah. And exciting news, we have Chicago and Toronto coming up.
Yo,
as our first meetup.
All right, other cities, don't get jealous. We're
other
coming.
cities, we got you on the list, but these are the first ones that are happening.
First ones happening.
Chicago, Toronto, we've got our representatives and they are helping us plan.
Yep. This is really exciting. So stay tuned. It's going to be end of May, beginning of June.
It's going to be amazing. They're going to be Botox parties.
But
just kidding.
Yeah, we're just so excited to meet you guys. So stay tuned for all of the details. Let us know if you're in those cities, end of May, beginning of June. And even if you like can easily travel to those cities, hey.
Yeah, honestly.
Parlay the trip. Make it into something, you know? Maybe a romantic weekend. Tell your boo you're like, got to go to something on Friday night or whatever day.
See you ladies.
So yeah, we're so pumped. Thanks for inspiring us to do that. So today on the podcast, we have Max Lugavere. His book is out now. It is Genius Foods. Fascinating.
Best title ever.
The covers like, perfect.
Great cover.
What the fuck? You see it at the bookstore, you're going to be like, I need that book.
Yeah, honestly, you're like, I want a Genius. Me and Lindsay guessed the Genius Food. So 15 minutes of the conversation, you can fast forward because me and Lindsay played a little guessing game.
Literally.
I was like, what does it rhyme with?
He's like,
He's like
potato.
Sweating. He's like, get me the fuck out of here. No, honestly, but he was so fun to talk to. He's got a great voice.
Great voice.
He's a pleasure to listen
cutie
to.
Patootie. Cutie. And it was just, and we just had fun. And you know, he's an expert.
Yep.
He's not a nutritionist. He's not a doctor, but he has done extensive interviews and research with doctors, with nutritionists over the last 6-7 years. His mom was diagnosed with dementia, and it just like
it's beautiful the way
ignited
he talked about
this like fire, like seeking knowledge about how he could prevent this in people our age. Start now. So yeah, I mean, it was just incredible. We go deep.
Mm-hmm. So this is great for health, nutrition, wellness. So we really go into brain science and the effect of diet and nutrition has on your brain function, regulation of all of your systems in the body, prevention of disease. So we're really excited to go deep with him. So we get pretty sciencey, we get kind of in the weeds, but we think this is a really important conversation to have and a really, really well-paced conversation.
Yeah. All right, guys. So join our secret Facebook group on Facebook. If you're not in there, we are having inspiring, enlightening, supportive, funny, amazing conversations in there daily. And we want to talk about this episode. If you haven't already, subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It is so important to us. And it's important, yes, we get up in the rankings and that's important to us, but mainly so that we can reach
It's important to us that we've been around 100 of top overall podcasts for weeks now. So
we were just next to Rich Roll, which literally tickled me crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I wonder if he sees that and he's like,
I know. They're like, who are these girls?
He's like, they're inspiring me.
He's like, didn't they email me 18 times?
Literally. Actually, I haven't because I'm too nervous.
I'm too nervous. All right, guys, enjoy this episode. We love you. We love you. Share this with a friend. If it resonates, share this podcast as a whole. If, you feel inspired, this is how we grow.
Yep. And you can connect with Max Lugavere. It's Max Lugavere on Instagram, maxlugavere.com. And the book is Genius Foods. And it is about optimizing brain optimization. So enjoy. And then we will be talking about this in the group. Woohoo! Bye.
This episode is brought to you by Four Sigmatic.
Yesterday, I emailed our favorite, Ari at Four Sigmatic, and I said, homie, I need to be hooked up. Because
I'm looking at my cover right now. Ari hooked me up.
2 things of Four Sigmatic a day at minimum.
You are an expensive human being.
How many do you have? You probably have 2.
No, you're right.
Really?
Yeah, you're right.
I know.
Yo, this stuff is worth it.
I'm an expensive human being. I know.
It is so worth it to put quality products into your body, but this is... This product is like
treat for me.
Yeah, no, it really is. Especially like the reishi with the cacao.
So there's a reishi cacao one that you can drink. It's like a hot chocolate that you can have at night. I'll put some layered superfood creamer in it. And just all of their products make you feel good. Like I felt more sharp. I felt more crisp. I've just felt more present. And I just really like, their story and we believe in the products. So you can get your own, maybe you want to try it with the reishi cacao, which is really great. It's really great for intro and you could take it before bed.
I had the chaga the other day.
Yeah, it's great.
It's so good. It's a little more earthy.
Yeah,
it's not
darker.
It's darker. Mm-hmm. It's really dark, but if you're used to seeing dark black coffee in your cup and you're trying to get off the coffee, put this in your cup.
And if you're not trying to get off the coffee, they have coffee.
They have coffee too. They have mushroom coffee.
Mushroom coffee.
It's great. So foursigmatic.com/almost30 and at checkout, you will see you're getting 15% off your first order. Get on there, buy in bulk. I'm telling you. It's the good stuff.
Literally. Enjoy.
This episode is also brought to you by Hum Nutrition, working on beauty from the inside out. We are loving Hum Nutrition as always. And it's so funny. Like I kind of rotate what I'm taking depending on what I'm needing. So if it's that time of the month, you better believe I'm taking the mood. It is my ally against PMS, mood balancing. Also, I've noticed reduces bloating. I am loving the Moody Bird. Also, ride or die red carpet. The red carpet for my hair, skin, nails. These supplements, vitamins are pure and potent, gluten-free, non-GMO, and sustainably sourced. Our community is loving Hum. If you join our secret Facebook group, we'll be talking about it in there. Just search Hum and you will find the conversations and the proof. You can visit humnutrition.com and type in our code almost30nation at checkout and you'll get 15% off your first order. Highly recommend. You can just go onto the website, take a short quiz. It's about 3 minutes and a certified nutritionist will give you a personal recommendation. You can work with them, ask them questions. It's very personal, which I love. And I think you'll be really happy. So let us know what you were recommended, what you bought, what you're loving. Join our secret Facebook group, email us, DM us. We love you guys. Enjoy.
It's like a hierarchy of like
Yes, importance. It's like, welcome, Max. The first thing you need to know is this will be the biggest podcast that you're ever going to be on.
It might be.
First things first.
At least the most fun.
Yeah, that's true.
Definitely the most
That's true.
fun.
Were you like, what are they going to ask me about?
I've never been
On a chick podcast?
the meat in a blonde girl sandwich on a podcast.
There you go.
So this is
Here
very
we go.
exciting.
It's
We bring
dreams.
out the mayo halfway through. It gets real weird.
Is it? I hope
We're talking Genius Foods,
It's
right?
Primal Kitchen. Yeah.
Yes, I was going to ask
It's
that.
Primal Kitchen.
I do
mayo.
have some Primal whenever you're ready.
Damn.
We're in it. We just kind of roll.
Yeah.
We roll.
Like
we're
that.
so happy that you're here.
Yeah,
We've
so
been
happy.
waiting for this.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Especially on your book tour. Are you tired?
I'm pretty tired, but I'm drinking a decent amount of coffee. I'm trying to get like my workouts in.
Yeah.
What do you do for your workouts?
I love to. I have a bias for weightlifting. I enjoy lifting weights.
Where do you work out at?
Equinox.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
On the west side, where do you live?
What's your address?
Where,
Give us the deets.
when I'm in LA, West Hollywood.
Cool.
Generally, yeah. I'm like I've always been around that area, Hollywood, West Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
and then in New York, I live in Murray Hill.
Oh, cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
You
not
guys-
bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah, you kind of like Murray Hill.
Well,
Well, everyone thinks
think
it's like a
fine.
frat neighborhood.
Yeah, it
Yes.
is kind of.
exactly.
It's fun.
What
no,
is it?
it's
Like
nice.
12th step? 13th step?
No.
That bar?
Is that lower? I know what you
think
mean.
it's Murray
but
Hill.
that chain of bars,
Yeah.
all those weird names. Like
Bro
there's
J's?
one in every.
Brother
Yeah,
Jimmy's?
There's
Bro
there's a restaurant in Murray Hill called the Flying Cock.
Yeah.
That's one of them.
Yeah. yeah.
LOL.
But it's they've actually got good. They have good oysters there.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
what people say. Hooters, great wings.
It's weird.
I don't know if I believe it.
I don't understand.
They're actually great.
Okay.
When I was eating wings in my past life, when I was
I would
with,
love to see you eat a wing.
oh my God, it was disgusting. But like I'd be like, ex-boyfriend, babe, can we go to Hooters and get
oh my
wings?
God. You're like, I'm the cool girl.
I'm the cool girl.
You're like, I'm the cool
loser.
girlfriend. I take my boyfriend to Hooters.
Yeah,
it's
he
fine.
thinks I'm great.
so funny.
So gross. Okay, so you're
Sorry.
back and forth. You're bi-coastal.
Wait, let me talk about your workouts. What do you do for your workout?
I enjoy lifting weights.
Like
I
what
always
kind of
have.
routine?
I used to have a more traditional like split. I'd like go to the gym but now I just try to keep it as varied as possible. And I just try every week to at least hit like push, pull, legs, big compound movements. But I really enjoy it. Like the mental health aspect for me is a major part of it. So it's just something that I've always really liked. I hate running. I do enjoy yoga. I like yoga. I also really like high intensity modes of exercise. So, battle ropes I've gotten into recently. But yeah, I don't like workout classes really, aside from maybe back when I was first learning yoga. I used to do that a lot. Now I don't really go so much anymore. But yeah, like...
What is the mental benefit of like strength training?
Well, it actually helps to make the entry of tryptophan into the brain easier. And tryptophan is the precursor to both serotonin and melatonin. So it's actually just one of the ways in which
Is
exercise...
that an amino acid?
It's an amino acid. Yeah, it's an
Okay.
essential amino acid. So we get it in food and things like that. And it's the direct precursor to serotonin, which is involved in positive mood and executive function, things like that. They've actually done really interesting experiments where they give a cocktail of amino acids called branched chain amino acids to people.
Yeah.
And these amino acids vie for the same transport into the brain as tryptophan. And so when you give a cocktail of these amino acids in isolation, it's been shown to temporarily deplete the brain of tryptophan. And what is the behavioral changes in the subjects, actually, they start to act more antisocial, their executive function declines, they display reduced ability to focus, delay gratification, things like that. And so that's how these amino acids can actually reduce executive function and reduce the ability of tryptophan to get into the brain. But what's so cool about exercise is that exercise actually works its magic by causing your muscles to suck up those branched chain amino acids, thus giving tryptophan an easier sort of entry route into the brain, which is really cool.
What foods have those branch chain?
All whole proteins.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's leucine, isoleucine, and valine. And when you're consuming a diversified diet with adequate protein, you're getting those amino acids.
Really?
But they're leucine in particular happens to be the most anabolic. So in terms of promoting muscle protein synthesis, which is what you want after a workout. You want your muscles to grow. Leucine is I guess, the one that's been shown to be the most effective. But at the end of the day, I think new research is even showing that it doesn't ultimately matter as long as you're getting adequate protein over the course of a day.
What about supplementing BCAAs? What do you think about that? Do you think it's necessary?
I don't think... I think the research doesn't seem to point to a necessity for doing that. And, they are actually kind of expensive, but there are some people in the fitness community that swear by them. So, there's a website that I became familiar with very early on called Lean Gains. And the guy who runs it is a bodybuilder. And he's a big advocate of intermittent fasting and then working out on a fasted stomach with the exception of taking branched chain amino acids before the workout. So I've experimented with that, and I think that it probably helped me. So I feel that it's if all the other aspects of your diet and workout routine are optimized and you're getting adequate rest and all that stuff, then I think it might be like a 10% push that gets you to whatever your end goal is. But I think most people should probably focus on getting adequate protein and optimizing their workouts instead
of doing something like that.
Instead of spending their hard-earned money on a supplement like that, when again those branched chain amino acids are found in the proteins that are readily available when you consume meat and things like that.
I can tell a difference if I take BCAAs sometimes, or I was subscribing to that, but I can always tell a difference in my muscle soreness. I don't feel as sore when I use them. It's helpful for that.
Protein is, of the macronutrients, the most satiating. There's actually this really interesting hypothesis. It's called the protein leverage hypothesis that basically posits that our hunger is driven basically by our necessity for protein. Because protein, from an evolutionary aspect, was probably the most expensive of the macronutrients and yet the most vital. Our bodies are made of protein. We're constantly, building up structures, breaking them down, and proteins are really, important for these processes. And the most protein-dense foods that a hungry hunter-gatherer would be able to find would be animals. And yet we had to chase those animals. And, that wasn't the easiest thing. So there's this idea that we actually eat the other macronutrients. We'll just basically eat until we get the adequate amount of protein. And that's why research has shown that protein is more satiating than both carbs and fat.
Really?
So, yeah.
Yeah, even though that people now say that fat is the most satiating and fat turns off hunger hormones. Have you heard that?
Fat, you could say that fiber is satiating because it fills up your stomach. Fat in a way is satiating because it slows what's called gastric emptying, the emptying of contents of your stomach into your small intestine. So it slows down that process, so it keeps your stomach full longer. But I believe the studies that I've reviewed have shown they take the same amount of calories from protein, fat, and carbs, and then they do these questionnaires with subjects. And they've found that, after consuming the same amount of calories from protein, that the subjects tend to feel more full or less hunger afterwards.
After having more protein.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether it's animal protein or plant protein. Are you finding now that, I feel like the plant-based diet is something, at least here in LA, is really popular and people subscribe to it and it works for them. So what are you finding in your research for this book? Is there a difference I know there's a difference in the type of protein, but especially when it comes to brain health?
When it comes to specifically brain health, my perspective is that the vegan diet is pretty hard to defend because it's hard to find any hunter-gatherer community that adheres to a vegan diet. And researchers don't believe that, veganism played a role in the development of our brains in the evolutionary sense. In fact, they speculate that it's not just access to meat, but cooked meat that catalyzed the growth of our brains, that provided this burst of caloric energy, highly bioavailable nutrients. It's the nutrients that are found specifically in meat are really important for the brain. Plants too, and then you look at the research on dementia prevention. There's not a single study that I could think of that looks at veganism as it relates to risk for dementia, Alzheimer's disease, things like that. They all include fatty fish at the very least, and it's less clear the role of red meat in terms of brain health. But I'm pretty convinced, based on not trials necessarily, and certainly not observational studies, because it's really hard to tease out quality meat. when you're looking at the population level, because most people consume really crappy quality meat. But I'm pretty convinced that red meat, when it's organic, grass-fed, is a health food. And I could reference a few studies. I mean, there was a really great trial actually performed out of UCLA where a researcher named Charlotte Newman went to these underdeveloped communities, Kenya. Well, actually, the trial was in Kenya. And she basically ran a randomized control trial where she gave children who, their brains are still developing, these traditional dishes made of corn, beans, and greens. Essentially, she gave them, there were 4 groups. She gave one group the dish without any added food group. She gave another group that dish with added dairy as a supplement. And then she gave the third group added beef. So there was like this traditional porridge with supplemental beef. And then there was a fourth group that served as the control. Those poor kids didn't get any additional morning snack. But what she found at the end of this trial was that the children that were supplemented with meat actually showed the greatest cognitive improvement. Their reading ability, their math scores improved. They showed greater confidence on the playground that could almost be interpreted as mental health, sign of better mental health. And they speculated that in that study, it's the fact that meat is, provides a burst of highly bioavailable nutrients that the brain needs. I mean, vitamin B12, zinc, creatine. Creatine is an underappreciated nutrient where brain health is concerned. It's something that people that are in the fitness world are very familiar with. Mm-hmm. It's got a pretty robust evidence and safety record for its ability to improve exercise.
Does that have to do with testosterone? Does it affect testosterone?
Yeah, what is
levels at all?
creatine?
Creatine, it doesn't affect testosterone.
No.
It essentially goes into your muscle tissue, where it helps to replenish ATP. So when you do really, really high intensity exercise, for the first 10 seconds, like I'm talking about pushing yourself, like in a CrossFit class or whatever, like whenever you really try to push yourself to your limits, whatever, that's going to be different for everybody. But for the first 10 seconds, you're basically using creatine as an energy source. And then you switch over to using stored sugar in your muscle. And then pretty much that's why high intensity exercise can really only last for 30 seconds to 45 seconds.
So it's like creatine and then glycogen?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
How long you use creatine for? Like 10 seconds?
About 10 seconds, yeah. Okay. So what happens is you've got this ATP molecule. It's the energetic currency of a cell, right? And as soon as you go into that high intensity exercise mode, the first energy system that kicks in, it's called the phosphagen system, also known as the creatine system. Yeah. And basically when ATP gets spent in the cell, it loses a phosphate molecule. So it becomes ADP, adenosine diphosphate. So it loses that, ATP is adenosine triphosphate. It's a little technical, but so it loses that phosphate molecule. And creatine is just hanging around in that muscle tissue waiting to donate a phosphate. So before using any sugar that's stored in your muscle cell, creatine actually donates a phosphate to recycle ADP back to ATP. But its ability to do that is very limited. So you can only basically use that system for about 10 seconds before you need to kick into glycolysis, which is when your muscle tissue starts using stored sugar. This is exactly why for people that like to maintain exercise performance and do really high intensity exercise, particularly regularly, you need to eat some level of carbohydrate to maintain that. You need to have that sugar stored in your muscle tissue. If you're not working out so often, there's less of a need to. But for example, I mean, just speaking from anecdotal experience and what I hear from people around me, my brother does jujitsu, which is very high intensity exercise, and he loves it. He does it like every single day. And he told me he once tried to do a ketogenic diet, and his performance he was just like struggling. And I can only
just got to get over that keto flu.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just get over that hump.
I think keto is great, but
we want to know what you think.
Yeah, what do you
keto.
think?
I think keto is great, but I also think that obsessing over keto and being in ketosis and not getting kicked out of ketosis, I don't think that chronic keto makes sense from an evolutionary perspective, just as much as chronically being out of keto makes sense. So it's about balance. It's about getting back to this, this balance that we've lost between being fed and being fasted, being in keto and, being in a more anabolic state.
And then, and I want to get to like an actual flow of our interview. Quickly, for the creatine thing. So if you supplement creatine, then will your body use that creatine that's supplemented before it uses glycogen?
Yeah, well, that's why supplementing with creatine is well known in the fitness community for boosting
your ability,
your endurance.
Okay.
Yeah, especially in high intensity modes of exercise. which in turn helps you lift more weight. That helps you grow, larger muscles.
Goals. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Gains.
Yeah, I'm trying to get these gains.
There's also a big hormonal thing there too. So
like
women
what?
like men are going to more easily grow muscle than women, which I think is,
sexist.
It's very sexist.
So you're sexist.
Darwin. It's Darwin. Blame Darwin.
Okay. That's true. That's
Wait,
true.
what are women using at Gold's Gym that I see who are more jacked than like most dudes I know?
There's like you can use like pills that get rid of water too.
Yeah, diuretics.
Right? They use like diuretic. Well, there's like also like really
steroids.
Intense, yeah, probably.
Okay, I don't know. Like I didn't know if that was creatine. I was like, is that creatine? I don't know.
Could be. And women,
like Hydroxycut.
There's like a huge range. Like everybody's different, and some women can pack on more muscle than others, and it depends on what you're eating and your goals. Everybody's different. But I think in general, testosterone helps.
Yeah.
So if women use testosterone or take it.
Well, yeah. But then you get some.
Do you inject it? Do they inject it?
They inject it, but then you get some pretty crazy.
Then you get like hair weird places, right? And you like your voice drops.
Voice drops. Things start growing that you didn't want, that you didn't intend to grow.
Really? Okay. That's crazy. Wow. Can you take us back? I want to know like what, I know your story, but who is Max? What inspired Genius Foods? The whole deal. Because we know your story and it's really inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah, so I began as a journalist and TV host. I was living out here for 10 years. I was working for a TV network called Current TV that Al Gore founded. And I really loved my job. It was incredible. It was my first gig out of college. I got to work with incredible storytellers and journalists, and I had my own TV show. So, it was an amazing couple of years where I was living in LA, getting all the perks associated with like being on TV.
So many girls.
Young Hollywood.
So many chicks.
I
was like, damn.
It was not a bad life. And I didn't feel guilty about it either. I've always been a pretty conscientious person, but the fact that like Al Gore was at the helm, the network always had this social impact mission. And my passion has always been really to kind of like create content that was compelling and that inspired the audience to a greater vision of life, but at the same time was, entertainment first. It had to like get to people. I didn't want to just create like, what I call spinach content or, the spinach show. And so even though spinach is very good for you.
What, spinach is bland?
Well, some people don't, some people don't like it, but I love it. Anyway.
Spinach show.
So I felt, it was like, I felt really good about my job. I loved living in LA. It was a city that, for as long as I can remember, I idolized, having grown up in New York City. I never felt like a New Yorker. I always felt this pull to California based on what I would like hear about it on MTV, as a kid.
It's all real world. You're like, I want to be there.
Yeah. There was a show, I forget what it was.
Spring Break.
Yeah, Laguna Beach.
In San Diego.
Laguna Beach.
You're like, holy shit, there's whipped cream and bikinis.
There was this yeah, Carson Daly.
Yeah, I had to sneak watching that. My mom wouldn't let me watch that.
Oh my God.
I don't even know if I watched it.
Rightfully so.
What, Spring? Oh yeah, MTV Spring Break. I forgot about that. Probably had friends on that show, honestly.
Man, back when like we all watched MTV.
They ruled like culture. They were like the pinnacle of culture.
It was insane. End of an era.
Completely.
So
you're the new Carson Daly. You're getting mad girls.
I became. So I ended up on TV as a VJ and got to really talk about the range of my passions and my interests. Anything I want to, because I had a nightly show and I was on TV every single day, I really got to cover the gamut of things that I was into. At the time I was super interested in music. I, tried to profile my favorite singer-songwriters. Cool. I was into technology. I was really interested in how technology was sort of getting to a place where it was impacting health. And I did that for 5 years. It was sort of like grad school that you get paid for. No, very few people watched the network, but those that did were pretty hardcore fans. But that being said, I learned a lot. And I left Current at a certain point to try to figure out where I was going to go with my career. I was really excited. The first 5 years of my career ended up being really, I had really high hopes for my career because I had all this press. I was really, my network had grown. I was a very good networker living in Hollywood. I ultimately had ended up signing with a really big talent agency, like one of the best talent agencies that people in LA dream to even get a meeting with these guys. They signed me right away, and I started going out for really big meetings for really big network TV shows as a TV host. And even in those early moments, I felt there was a little bit of a cognitive dissonance because, again, my passion was always creating content that was inspiring, informational to some degree. And I was going out for like the kinds of shows that you really almost have to kind of sell your soul.
Yeah.
You know, you can reach a lot of people, which was kind of enticing to me because I had worked so hard at Current TV to really not much of an audience, you know? And so I was going out on all these meetings and my agent was like pushing me. And then suddenly in the midst of all that and like being really excited about my career, I was spending more and more time in New York City and more time around my mother. And it seemed as if suddenly from out of nowhere, my mom's cognition, her brain, had sort of like downshifted. And, you know, I've always been in very close contact with my mom, even when I was in LA with the, you know, intense shooting schedule of a nightly TV show. I would still probably end up calling my mom every other day just to check in, ask her for advice, things like that. And the more time that I would spend with my mom, the more that I would realize that she was suffering from some kind of like brain fog. She ultimately began complaining of it. And we also noticed, me and my brothers noticed that something had changed in her gait, which is like the way the person walks. She's a New Yorker, so, you know, New Yorkers are, you know, they love to walk. She never had a driver's license. And we noticed that her stride had sort of changed in a way that it became a little bit more compressed. And that was really strange. You know, we didn't know what to think of it. I kind of just suspected that it was a sign that my mom needed to get to the gym a little more frequently. I had no concept that the way that a person walks could have anything to do with their brain health. Obviously, I know much differently now. But it all sort of culminated for me when we were in Miami. We were on a family trip, and this was like one of the few moments that my mom and my dad were together. My parents have been divorced since I was 18, but they're still amicable. And we were all down in Miami in my dad's apartment, and we were all sort of in the living room. My mom was in the dining room, which is connected to the living room. And she essentially announced to the whole family that she'd been having memory problems. This is something that she really, you know, hadn't addressed publicly with the entire family present before. And so it was a bit of a shock. And then she said that she had been seeing a neurologist. And we didn't know really what that was all about. You know, I don't even know if I really understood what a neurologist did, to be completely honest. I mean, I had no prior family history of any kind of neurological condition. Certainly my family, we've had a history with psychiatrists, but not neurologists. And me and my brothers and my dad who was there were at such a loss that my dad was like, yeah, if you're having memory problems, you know, what year is it? And my mom couldn't recall the year. And me and my brothers chimed in, you know, because we were completely ignorant and we were almost, you know, mocking my mom. We were like, come on, Mom, think about it. How could you not know the year? And she began to cry. She was really struggling. And ultimately, she couldn't tell us what year it was. And for me, that was the moment that everything just kind of stopped. Like it was like a record screeching. And I realized that I had to sort of step in and validate the observations that me and my brother had and go with my mom to these appointments and see what the hell was going on. So I ended up going back to LA after that trip, and I was unable to think about anything other than what was going on with my mom. And I began, you know, in that moment to begin researching health and neurology, and, you know, my bias towards health and nutrition really kind of gave me this hunch that there had to be something in her diet that was related to what my mom was experiencing. And so I started doing this research. I lost interest in my career. I continued to go on these, you know, meetings and auditions that my agency had set me up with, but they could tell that I wasn't interested, and I just wasn't into it. Ultimately, my agency dropped me, and I started spending more time in New York, going with my mom to these doctor's appointments. And we ultimately ended up going to the Cleveland Clinic to try to find some semblance of a diagnosis, because my mom's symptoms didn't fit neatly into any one label. And so despite having gone to NYU, Columbia, it was still unclear as to what my mom might have had. And it was at the Cleveland Clinic that for the first time my mom was diagnosed with a neurodegenerative disease. She was prescribed drugs for Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease. And, you know, that moment in Miami was pretty hard. That was a shift for me in terms of, you know, just drawing a line in the sand and really getting me to focus on trying to understand what was going on with my mom. It really motivated me to step in. But when my mom got that diagnosis and when I started Googling what those pills were for and seeing terms like, you know, no disease modifying ability, blah, 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 Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, it was basically the first time in my life that I'd ever had a panic attack. And I just became obsessed from that point forward with learning everything I possibly could about nutrition, lifestyle, how it affects brain function, how it mediates risk for neurological disease, things like that. It didn't ever occur to me that, you know, that not being a medical doctor or a PhD, you know, made me any less entitled to the answers that I was seeking. I just dug into what's called the primary literature. You know, having a background in journalism, I knew how to pick my sources. I knew how to ask questions and maintain, you know, a sense of skepticism, which I think you have to, you know, as a scientist. And that was, you know, that began 6 years ago, and it's a journey that continues to today. And, you know, since then I've interviewed dozens of the top researchers in the field. I've read, you know, at least 1,000 scientific papers. I've become actually colleagues with some of the researchers that I've interviewed, you know, ultimately being able to participate in research. And even I've had the ability to teach doctors and medical students, which is incredible. I recently shot a video series for academic CME, which is continuing medical education. I'm a health and science journalist for Medscape, so I reach hundreds of thousands of doctors around the world, and it's been really incredible. You know, I have no formal background in nutrition, but I'm just completely obsessed with it and obsessed with not only understanding it, but communicating the science responsibly and effectively. Like, I'm equally obsessed with that, like the verbiage that one needs to use when communicating these ideas. And I think that's why these researchers have embraced me in return.
How is your mom?
She's okay. But, I mean, to be honest, dementia is horrible. It's been a major stress in my family. It's changed her. You know, we don't have conversations like we used to.
Does she remember you?
Yeah, she doesn't have Alzheimer's disease. She has a more niche form of dementia, which is, you know, better or worse. I'm not really sure. It's a less studied variant of dementia, but dementia is horrible. So I sort of stand there with, you know, I'm not a caregiver, but, you know, a lot of people, not a single person that I encounter doesn't have some kind of experience with dementia, Alzheimer's disease, things like that. And, you know, it's hard. It's considered a caregiver's disease because it's just, you know, which is, I don't think fully doesn't really pay due to the patient, because I'm sure it's hard for the patient. But yeah, it's just, it's difficult. And Alzheimer's disease, one of the things that shocked me the most is that Alzheimer's disease actually begins in the brain 30 to 40 years before the first symptom. It's unclear where the etiology of other neurological conditions really is, you know, but Parkinson's disease too begins in the brain far earlier than the presentation of symptoms. So for me, it became very much a millennial issue, you know, something that younger people need to be talking about. And I just decided to stand up and be like, you know, this is something that, like, we have a choice, and this is something that we need to be talking about. And, you know, once symptoms emerge, I mean, it's a really difficult disease to treat. So knowing that our generation has invested so much in human capital, more than any previous generation, it became something to me that was like, it was just a really strong call to action. And in tandem with that, you know, millennials tend to, first of all, people think of dementia as an old person's disease, which it's not. It begins in the brain, as I said, decades before the first symptom, like many chronic diseases that are burdening society. So these are not things that, when you have a heart attack, you know, what inevitably caused that heart attack didn't begin the night before you having a heart attack. These are processes that take a very long time to develop in the body. The other thing is that doctors are not experts when it comes to nutrition. So when you go to see a doctor asking for nutritional advice, it takes on average 17 years for what's discovered in science to be put into day-to-day clinical practice. So there's this huge lag time. Millennials don't care about dementia. They're not attuned to dementia-related content. So I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to make this a talking point for young people? And that's kind of how I came up with the idea for writing Genius Foods.
So when you were researching, did you take a look at what your mom had been eating, consuming? Like, was it that deep?
Yeah. Why did you think about food first? It's interesting to me. Like, I feel like our generation was like maybe the first that's correlating food to, the cause for like disease.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that like even 6 years ago, you saw food as a correlation rather than, I felt like what we were taught to do would be look at, maybe research around it and kind of hand it over to the genetics or hand it over to pharmaceutical companies and kind of have them figure out like what we should do.
Yeah.
So why did you go to food first?
That's a good question. So at the exact moment that my mom started to decline, and for a couple of years after that, her mother was still alive. So my maternal grandmother lived until 96. And cognitively, my grandma was sharp. So and she lived with my mom. So there was this moment for me. Well, there were multiple moments, but there was this period that was particularly heartbreaking for me because I would be in my mom's house and I would see my grandmother, who was 96, unable to walk, decrepit, old, the picture of aging, cognitively sharper than my mother, her daughter, which was just insane. My mom needed to have a caregiver at the same time that my grandmother was alive and was basically still watching the stock market. So I had a hunch that something had to have changed between my grandmother's generation and my mother's generation that led to my mom developing this disease. And if you just look at the environment around you, I mean, it's very obvious, what has changed. Our diets and our lifestyles. Our genes certainly haven't changed. And my grandmother, because she didn't have dementia, it was clear to me that there wasn't a genetic, that what my mom had wasn't determined by her genes. It was perhaps influenced by her genes, but it certainly wasn't, one of these conditions that is determined by, inheritance. And so I just started looking into my mom's diet and questioning all the things that I saw her eating and not eating growing up. And just the paradigm that I had in my head for what nutrition really was. And I realized that, a lot of the nutritional information that we've been spoon-fed over the past couple of decades really was not built on any kind of solid science. And it just, I think, was the detriment to her health in many ways. I mean, I'm not putting the blame solely on diet. I could point fingers at the way that my mom lived her life too. She didn't really have a good way of dealing with stress. She probably had a relationship with her mother and her children that was a little too codependent. She never, and like many in her generation, didn't value exercise the way that we do. They didn't have private gyms. Working out wasn't a lifestyle the way that it is now. But on the other hand, I believe that she was poisoned by her food supply. And I think that people today continue to be poisoned by the food supply. Our dietary guidelines are not based on any solid evidence. And it's getting a little bit better, thankfully. But, for example, you can look at grains, which get a bad rap today. But when you just talk strictly in terms of evidence, our USDA MyPlate, which is the successor to the food pyramid, which for decades advised us to eat 6 to 11 servings of grains every single day, still advises us that for health, we've got to include grains at every meal. But when you look at research like what was published by Cochrane, which is an organization that is known for their unbiased systematic reviews of medical literature in partnership with the World Health Organization, they looked at all randomized control trials, which are the kinds of trials required to prove cause and effect, involving grains as an intervention, and they could find no convincing evidence that grains actually improve health. So we're told that we need to eat them to be healthy, and yet there's no evidence. Yeah, heart health, as if heart disease is caused by a deficiency of oatmeal. Totally. Right? It's not. And that's clear. But then when you look at the economics of the issue, I mean, if you were to fly over the United States, what you might notice is that 65% of the U.S. planted landmass is dedicated to growing wheat, corn, and soy. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we're dedicating a huge amount.
And then the government subsidizes it.
Exactly. Yeah. And how much of our planet landmass is dedicated to growing vegetables? 5%.
Wow.
Right.
Huh?
Yeah. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
So what were you seeing specifically that your mom was eating or not eating that could have contributed to her dementia?
Well, I grew up eating margarine. In fact,
classic.
Yeah. Well,
Classic.
it's a classic. I, in fact,
What's the difference between margarine and butter?
Yeah, is margarine just fake shit, right?
It's fake shit.
It's just fake shit. It's like oil.
I can see my aunt
Isn't
saying,
it
do you guys
corn
want some
syrup?
margarine?
It's
Oh yeah, it was. I can't believe it's not butter. I'm like, it's not butter. It's good for you.
It's the worst.
Sprayed it on my toast. I was like,
It's horrible. It's literally manufactured for pennies. You know, it's this oil that's basically costs these manufacturers nothing, and squeezed into these yellow tubs and sold for $5 at the health food section of the supermarket. Literally, it's the most processed, inflammatory, damaging crap. And that's what I grew up with. In fact, I actually preferred the taste of margarine because in the margarine in my house, my mom would buy salted margarine and unsalted butter because of course she thought that salt was bad for you because that's what we're told. And so I used to love to put margarine on my toast and oh my God, it was so delicious. But we now know that margarine is, incredibly bad for you.
Was it partially hydrogenated oils? Is it hydrogenated oils is in it?
Yes. Okay. Well, formerly, but now those oils thankfully have been actually outlawed.
Yeah.
But still, that doesn't make these oils they make them marginally less bad for you because trans fats are, probably some of the most toxic substances you can consume. But what's important to know is that these oils actually naturally contain trans fats. So even without having gone through that process of hydrogenation, the processing that is needed to create these oils and make them tasteless and odorless and have such a high smoke point literally creates trans fats. It's due to the one of the processes called the deodorization process. So you can go to organic, non-GMO canola oil, probably canola oil sold at Whole Foods, right? And they've shown that there's up to 5% trans fats in those oils, even though the bottle will never say that they contain trans fats because they're produced in the manufacturing process and it's not due to hydrogenation. So yeah, I grew up eating that. I grew up never eating eggs. I never saw my mom eating eggs because of the cholesterol in the yolks, which she believed were bad for her heart. She believed that, of course, because that's what the government told her. And my mom was always very attuned to heart health because her father died of heart disease. So all of the recommendations, that she was essentially given by the government, by the mass media at the time, she adhered to. Always low fat. Dinner often for me consisted of like spaghetti, wheat-based spaghetti with, margarine or pesto, but like commercial pesto made with canola oil. And yeah, at the same time, she never believed that eating white flour was anything but healthy because it had no fat and no cholesterol. So, we grew up on bagels, black and white cookies, pastries, things like that. Yeah.
I used to have like 2 bagels after school.
Oh yeah, easy.
2 bagels would be like, oh, it's low fat, and I would
my
eat
lunch would be like
bagels.
white.
Yeah,
plain bagel, French
would
fries,
have a
cream cheese.
whole box of like Honey Bunches of Oats for breakfast.
It's crazy. One bagel can have as much
sad.
as
Makes me sad.
Yeah,
it bums me out.
That you really enjoy the bagels and
no, I don't miss I don't miss bagels. It just bums me out, like thinking about like you as a little kid or like me as a little kid, just like thinking that you're doing well, and that I've always had that thought and sentiment that it's really frustrating when like people are lying to you. I think that the research is really caught up and now we're really starting to understand, but it's really frustrating when people think that they're doing a good job or they think that they're doing well by themselves and subscribing to low fat or something like that, and it's really just detriment to their health. Like I think about my mood and what I would have been like as my personality if I was eating better as a kid.
Yeah. Well, so that's exactly what we explore in Genius Foods, which is the link between diet. Yeah. That was a nice on-ramp into
it's a layup
into book promo.
We've done this before.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So basically, just to sort of close the loop, I became obsessed with learning about, it began with my mom, obviously, learning everything I possibly could about the latest understanding of how diet and lifestyle contributes to one's development of a disease like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and things like that. And almost immediately, I began sort of eating the way that I discovered in my research to be the optimal brain healthy diet. And I did notice that almost immediately my brain started working better because I too, growing up, struggled with executive function. My grades were never very good, even though teachers always loved me. I was always in the gifted program. I always asked really, good questions. So teachers really enjoyed having me as a student, but I always struggled with my schoolwork. And that's actually one of the main reasons why I didn't go into medicine, despite always having a passion for health. And when I started to really kind of like notice that, because to me it was very noticeable, I went further into the research and I started looking at research on young and healthy people to see how diet and lifestyle might actually improve cognition, decades perhaps before you would ever develop something like Alzheimer's disease. And there's a huge body of research that is just buried in the medical literature, but I think is very empowering for people that just want to think better. And in tandem with that, I talk a lot about this new field called nutritional psychiatry, which I guess involves ADD, ADHD, things like that, but specifically looks at how food affects mood. So the role of diet and lifestyle in terms of, mediating risk for depression and even serving as a potential antidepressant for people with depression and anxiety. And this is, I think, pretty exciting because, who hasn't dealt with a bout of depression? I think it's normal, especially in 2018, to be depressed sometimes and to feel a sense of anxiety, right? But we tend to think about ourselves as having had a moral failure, right? When we're depressed, like where did we fuck up in our lives to get us to this point, right? But really, going back to the food supply, there's very strong evidence that what we're eating can actually be stoking the flames of depression. And that to me, I think is just really important, a really important insight.
Yeah.
We interrupt this episode to bring you a word from our sponsor, Moellens.
Our newest sponsor, Moellens. What I love about Moellens is that I have no idea about CBD and its uses or anything like that. And I don't really even need to know. You can listen to our episode with Perry Solomon of Hello MD, but Moellens makes it super easy to get amazing, gorgeous, incredible, effective products that have the benefits of CBD in it. And that's what I love. It's just easy.
It's so easy and beautiful. Please visit this website.
This website's insane. It's the most beautiful site ever.
MOWELLENS.com. My friend Amy Duncan started this brand after her husband's malignant brain tumor returned. She left corporate America. She was in biotech. So she was in the space, but she was on a mission to bring CBD to the masses because it had changed her husband's life, changed her life, and helped him to manage pain, stress, mood, everything.
Yeah.
And I just think this is a beautiful brand with a beautiful mission. And
those are the companies we support. 100%. Companies that happen for a reason, are created for a reason, are beautiful on the inside and aesthetically super pleasing. What I love from Moellens is the Dream in Green. So it's a whipped CBD infused body souffle. So it's a super, super thick lotion that makes your body and skin so soft, but also relaxes and just makes you chill out. So I'll put it in after my shower, before I go to bed, and it just eases me into an amazing sleep and makes my skin like free of any bumps. It's just been great. So I really, really love the Moellens Dream in Green.
Me too. And what I love about Moellens is that all Moellens products are grown for good, which means $1 from every item sold is donated to organizations committed to supporting initiatives near and dear to their mission, like holistic wellness, self-care education, family scale, sustainable farmers, and those who create meaningful experiences for brain tumor patients. And the best part is that their customers can decide how the dollars are spent. So again, just a conscious brand. We love them. Moellens.com, MOWELLENS.com. You could use our code almost30 for 15% off your first order. It's a no-brainer.
Yep. CBD infused beauty products from an amazing brand that gives back.
This episode is also brought to you by BioClarity. All right, here's the deal. your skin recognizes what's real, so you got to feed it well. BioClarity is using the power of plants and smarts of science to help you find clear, natural, balanced skin. I've said it a million times. You guys are probably sick of it. I am a firm believer in BioClarity. I've done everything for my skin. Everything. So combine a healthy diet. I've cut out dairy, and then I've used BioClarity on my skin, the 3-step process, the cleanse, the treat, and the restore. The restore has the Floralux in it, which is the green stuff in plants. And then I've also added the hydrate, which is a skin smoothing moisturizer. Loving it. There's like no smell to it, super lightweight, but really nourishing. I am obsessed with this system. I've tried everything, and this just clears it up consistently. And my skin doesn't fight back. So a lot of products that I've used in the past are really harsh on my skin, create redness, dryness, flakiness, and I've truly never seen better results than with BioClarity. So you guys can try out BioClarity first time for just $9.95 plus free shipping if you use our code ALMOST30 at checkout. So that's $9.95 for your first month, free shipping if you use our code ALMOST30. Guys, this is a game changer. So let us know. It's only $10. Try it out. If you're not happy, let them know. Send it back. But I'm pretty sure you'll love this cruelty-free and vegan product we love so, so much. Yeah, I mean, I think about that all the time. I think especially for kids who don't know, but then also like our parents' generation and older, you know, I think, well, food is used as a comfort. Food is used, you know, as a way to feel like you're home, you know, like you eat your favorite cake because it makes you feel a certain way, when really what is happening chemically is that it's, you know, deepening your depression in a way that, you know, you can't come out of. So what would you, I also wanted to ask about alcohol too. Like, was that kind of a part of your research?
Yeah. I mean, I drank throughout my 20s.
You were in LA. You were a celeb. I mean,
I don't know about that.
We all did.
Yeah. I definitely drank throughout my 20s, drank a lot in college.
Where'd you go to college?
University of Miami.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Because your dad was in Miami?
My dad lives in Miami. Yeah. Yeah. I've just always had a thing for warm weather.
I love Miami. It's one of my favorite cities. It's the best.
I was very drawn to that city as a kid. Yeah. So the research on alcohol is not super consistent. It seems that people that drink in moderation have reduced risk for various diseases, but it's not clear whether or not the alcohol, the ethanol, which is the compound in alcohol responsible for the buzz, is actually what's conferring that protective effect, or if it's the fact that alcohol is just such a well-known and clearly observable social lubricant and way that people use to de-stress. So, I mean, stress is one of the worst things, especially in its chronic form. So, I mean, insofar as alcohol is reducing stress for some people and helping people feel more connected with one another.
Is it actually reducing stress? You know what I mean? Like
within a narrow range, probably. I mean, it probably increases stress when you're hungover, obviously. Okay. Things like that.
Sunday scary.
But I think, but I think in terms of like lowering your inhibitions and helping you feel more connected to one another, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that alcohol has some kind of positive effect for some people, right? But on the other hand, ethanol is a neurotoxin. So, it's not clear really what the true role is. You can say that red wine, for example, has antioxidants in it. I mean, they're there in very tiny amounts, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I have definitely reduced my drinking. There was actually a study published that found that even mild, or I should say moderate drinking was associated with accelerated brain shrinkage. So I mean, there's studies that are both positive and negative. Yeah. I think if you've got healthier ways of dealing with stress and you can sort of get over yourself enough to be able to connect with people and go to a bar without having to have a drink and get over your impulses in that moment, I think that's probably better for you. I used to go to a bar and not feel comfortable unless I had a drink in my hand. And at a certain point, I wanted to just, challenge myself to be like, look, you're complete without that drink in your hand. Okay. Mm-hmm. You don't need it. And you're just as interesting without it than with it. So just try.
People are more interesting without it.
Some people, maybe. But I think it's definitely a good thing it's a good exercise to just, to go out and try to not have a drink. If you really need to have something in your hand, get a sparkling water with a glass of wine. And there's certainly healthier ways to drink alcohol. Make sure that you abide by the 1-for-1 rule. Between every drink, have a glass of water. I'm also a big fan of putting a little bit of salt in that water so as to replenish electrolytes. Alcohol is a diuretic. You end up peeing out sodium.
Yeah. Talk to us about salt. So a lot of people think like too much salt is bad. Why is it good?
Salt's really important. Salt is, first of all, sodium is a nutrient. It's been demonized over the past couple of decades.
Why do you think that is?
So annoying. I still look at the label and look at sodium content.
Why is sodium? Why was it bad?
Well, the problem is that most people overconsume carbohydrates. Your average American consumes about 300 grams of carbohydrates per day.
Wow.
And what that's doing is it's causing this ancestral hormone called insulin to be chronically elevated. Insulin is secreted by your pancreas in response to there being sugar in your blood. And what insulin does is it causes your kidneys to abnormally hold on to sodium. So all of these people that are on the standard American diet that are eating way too many carbohydrates, for them, they've been given advice to reduce sodium, which I think is misguided advice because their kidneys are already holding on to excessive sodium. Not only that, but sugar stokes your body's sympathetic nervous response, which basically increases your blood pressure in and of itself. So people are advised to reduce sodium because of its impact on hypertension or high blood pressure. But the advice really should be to reduce carbohydrate intake, allow your insulin to drop so that you pee out excess sodium, which your kidneys are very good at doing when you're healthy, and consume sodium as needed. Sodium is really important, right? So think about all the people who actually are now being put on low sodium diets. They're eating way too many carbs. They're put on low sodium diets, and so they're not able to season otherwise healthy but bland foods in a way that makes them want to eat it. So when I cook vegetables like Brussels sprouts and kale and things like that, I'm eating these foods and I find them delicious because they're loaded with healthy salt, garlic, and pepper. They become really savory and delicious, right? I probably wouldn't find Brussels sprouts and broccoli delicious without salt, right? So these poor people that are told to be on these low sodium diets, it's just, it's got to make life miserable, and it's misguided advice.
Wow. Talking about the correlation between, depression and anxiety and diet. So what I've heard is that and I want to hear your take on it and what your thoughts are, is that there's a correlation between like sugar. So it's like the blood sugar rises or insulin rises and then it crashes, and that sort of leads to like mood swings and things like that. But what is the research that you found around food's relationship to depression and anxiety?
Very good question. Thanks. You're a pro. So the link between depression and poor diet has long been known, but what was not clear was the line of causality. Like obviously when we're depressed, we tend to reach for unhealthy foods to comfort us. But really interesting research, especially a small trial, but very interesting and very important nonetheless, was published last year out of Deakin University's Food and Mood Center that actually used for the first time a dietary intervention as an antidepressant in patients with major depression. So they basically took this group, it was about 70 people, and they divided them into two groups. And one group was given the standard of care, and the other group was told to improve their diets. They all had pretty crappy diets to begin with, but the dietary intervention group was told to focus their diets on foods like extra virgin olive oil, vegetables, fruits, grass-fed red meat, eggs, nuts, and seeds. And what they found was that compared to the control group, those in the dietary intervention group actually were able to significantly improve their symptoms of depression to the point that 33%, almost a third of the patients in the diet group, their depression was so significantly improved that they no longer met the diagnostic criteria for major depression, compared to only 8% in the standard of care group. Wow. Which to me is, that's a very robust effect. It was a small trial, but statistically significant, no less. And those S words. And so that I think is very interesting. And there's also been really good research on various compounds that are known anti-inflammatories and their ability to reduce depression. So there was a pretty good trial. I can't recall the specifics of it, but they used a formulation of curcumin, which is a known anti-inflammatory.
Turmeric, right?
Yeah. And they found that
Is it in turmeric? Is it anything else but turmeric?
No, it's found only in turmeric to my knowledge. And so, yeah, they gave these patients this compound and they found a significant reduction in their depression symptoms. There was another study that I cited in the book where students with anxiety, they were medical school students. So, anxiety runs rampant in kids going through med school. They gave them fish oil, which is also anti-inflammatory due to the presence of EPA fat in fish oil. And they found that coincided with a 20% decrease in their anxiety, which is, very interesting stuff. The ability of food to influence mood. There's been some really good associations with probiotic-containing foods and social anxiety. So it seems pretty clear to me that our brains respond to the inputs that we feed it on a pretty moment-to-moment basis. And it makes sense. Going back to inflammation, inflammation is something that not many people fully understand, and it's sort of considered like a 4-letter word these days, but inflammation is a very important response on the part of our immune systems to help protect us against a pathogen becoming a full-blown infection or a sprained ankle. It helps us heal when we injure ourselves, essentially. And inflammation is sort of meant by our bodies to be used acutely in those acute settings. Today, inflammation has become chronically something that we all are experiencing due to our diets and our lifestyles. But again, it's really meant as this sort of helpful mechanism. And zookeepers are pretty well aware that when an animal has an infection, they display behaviors that are called sickness behaviors. They retract from the herd. They stop grooming themselves. They lose their appetites. They essentially... It's thought that they extricate themselves from the group to promote healing, to save their energy, and so as also not to spread the infection. You could see how that adaptation would serve a pretty powerful advantage, especially to a species as social as us, right? So now that so many people are suffering from chronic low-grade inflammation, it's not implausible that humans, even in a low-level way, experience these sickness behaviors at a subconscious level. Less desire to go out and socialize and connect with one another. That's kind of unfortunate because we're perhaps experiencing these not as a response to being infected, but to the things that we're eating, which is unfortunate.
I think it's so interesting. Like our bodies are giving us answers and messages all the time. And so why did we turn that off? Or why, it's almost like we can't get quiet enough to listen to it. And we're so dependent on the medication and kind of other people telling us what we should do rather than tuning in and being like, okay, so when I eat a half of an entire pizza, I'm feeling foggy and I'm feeling, just really tuning in. I wonder when that, I don't know if it ever was that. I guess not. But I would think maybe back in hunter-gatherer days, they're like, oh, that didn't make me feel great, or I couldn't hunt as well today, so I'm not going to eat that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when was that lost? That's a good one.
I don't know.
I think, to some degree, it takes a bit of discipline, especially today in the modern world when we're just confronted, from every which way with unhealthy food options. There's this phenomena amongst people that, there's a quote that I heard recently that everybody wants to go to heaven, nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to do. It's a metaphor. I don't believe in heaven, but I think it's a good metaphor because it's people want the results, but they don't want to necessarily do the work. Mm-hmm. And on the opposing end of the spectrum, there are food manufacturers that have well-paid food scientists that literally are working around the clock designing new food products that are literally meant to addict you to them. And so, the modern food environment has sort of become like a minefield. Going through the modern supermarket, it's a very treacherous place to walk through, especially if you've got problems with your willpower, which most people do inevitably because we're also underslept. So it's a systemic
Did your mom have trouble sleeping?
I don't know, actually. Now she does. Now she does.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that she ever used to. I don't. I mean, I sleep like a baby.
Same.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful.
I know, me too.
Your mom doesn't sleep well.
Yeah, no, my mom doesn't sleep well either.
Really?
But I just always think about like, obviously it affects brain function, but does it affect the brain long term? Like eating bad food would. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it likely does.
Assume.
When we sleep, our brains,
Regenerate.
switch on these really important maintenance processes. So by chronically depriving yourself of sleep, you're essentially not maintaining your brain.
Yeah.
One of the most important things that your brain does, it's a recently discovered system called the glymphatic system, kicks on, and your brain basically swooshes cerebrospinal fluid throughout, cleaning it of these proteins that build up during the day and could potentially aggregate and cause these plaques that build up that are characteristic of Alzheimer's disease. And they've shown that on one night of poor sleep, there's an increase in measurable amyloid beta in cerebrospinal fluid.
Wow.
So, yeah, sleeping is definitely getting good, adequate quality sleep is very important. And it's also really important in terms of helping you rely less on your willpower and having greater domain over your behavior and decisions. Because when we're underslept,
That's so true.
yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's actually, it's very interesting. When you are underslept, your prefrontal cortex, there's less activity in your prefrontal cortex, which is basically the hub of self-awareness and executive function and all these higher order cognitive processes that make us human. And so it's a lot easier you essentially become like, your reptile brain comes out when you're underslept. It becomes a lot more difficult to avoid sugary foods, high carbohydrate foods. It becomes a lot more difficult when you're underslept to contextualize your emotions. I mean, if you've ever gone through a breakup, you'll notice how painful it is on days that you're underslept. Whereas on a night of good sleep, it actually, you're much more able to deal with those emotions, I think, in an effective way. And that's all, because sleep really is so important.
Totally. Yeah.
I want to dig into the book and what people who are going to buy the book can expect. Is it, explain it to us, kind of how it's mapped out. And then I want to ask some questions, quick lists for people wanting to eat for, better memory, clarity, energy, all of that. So
awesome.
We'll get into it.
Yeah. So Genius Foods, it's basically what I think to be the greatest synthesis of dementia prevention research, nutritional psychiatry, and cognitive optimization. So normally these topics are found in different books. In my book, it's all under one roof, so to speak. And at its core, it's a very powerful guide to preventing dementia based on the best available evidence and clinical observations that have yet to even really be studied. But also, there's a very strong component in it that relates to how you can improve your mood. If you're suffering from depression, if you have chronic anxiety, chronic stress, the book is going to give you very powerful tools to boost your resilience against these sorts of things, which are so common today. I mean, 1 in 6 adults today is on some kind of antidepressant drug.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Or, sorry, a psychiatric drug.
Is that
Antidepressant drugs, about 1 in 10 people are on antidepressant drugs, and that number skyrockets for women in their 40s and 50s to 1 in 4. So, I mean, it's a major,
I wonder why.
major problem.
Hormonal?
I think that there might be a bias against the hysterical woman, but I'm just speculating here.
That's interesting.
Well, I'll just give you, my mom, before her diagnosis and before her, she was prescribed these pills, some psychiatrists thought that all of her symptoms were stemming from depression and put her on an antidepressant. And obviously what unfolded was much more severe than depression. But what they don't tell you is that these antidepressant drugs are impossible to come off of without serious guidance. Yeah. And I'm not saying, and I'm not militantly anti-pharma in the book in any sense, because certainly these drugs help some people, but I provide alternatives in the book. And I also really highlight the evidence in terms of what the research says about these drugs and who specifically they work for and who might be better off improving their diets and doing a little bit more exercise. And then the other aspect of the book is cognitive optimization. So I don't really have a good term for that. I don't think that has really been crystallized in the literature. I think it falls outside of the domain of nutritional psychiatry, but it's really about how food and various nutrients can actually improve the way that you think in the here and now. I mean, today, 1 in 7 younger people between the ages of 18 and 39 complain of memory problems. And that's not cool, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Short term or long term or what kind? Because I can't remember anything about my childhood.
Yeah.
What do you think about
it? might be repressing something.
Yeah, that's what everyone says. I'm like,
yeah. I think, each of us, I think what's so amazing about being a human, right, is that we're each heir to the universe's most advanced supercomputer. Mm-hmm. Like the flagship product of Darwinian evolution, we each have for free. We're just gifted it at birth. And yet for so many people, our brains don't work as well as they ought to. Mm-hmm. And, so in Genius Foods, I really hope to help people that are suffering from brain fog, memory complaints, things like that. I highlight nutrients that have been shown in young, healthy people who are already believed to be at the peak of their cognitive prowess, can actually improve visual processing speed by 20%. Mm-hmm. Visual processing speed is really important for sports performance, perceiving a visual stimuli and responding to it. So driving a car, for example. I mean, these are all aspects of life that rely on visual processing speed. What if you can eat a bowl of kale every single day and see your processing speed improve? Well, that's actually, the nutrients that they found to have such an impact, such a robust impact on this area of our cognition are 2 nutrients, lutein and zeaxanthin, that are found readily in kale, spinach, yolks of pasture-raised eggs, the fat of grass-fed beef. I mean, so these nutrients are out there. I highlight them all in the book, and I also, rather than just continue to beat people over the head with what they know that they shouldn't eat. I mean, that's all in my book too. But one thing I never ever want to do is talk down to my audience. I think people these days know that sugar's bad. Most people. I go into why sugar is bad for sure, for any newbies to nutrition. But I also make it really simple in terms of just telling people what they should eat. So I highlight what I call the genius foods, and these are the 10 foods that in the book I highlight as having a very protective and brain boosting effect, evidenced by literature and just, I try to make it really easy for people, because the research shows that the healthiest people buy the same healthy foods on loop. This idea of like dietary diversity, eat everything in moderation, that's like the worst advice, especially today. Yeah.
Wow. Can we guess the foods?
I was gonna say, like, I just on the diversity of what you eat every day. That was a question of mine. Like,
that's a good one.
There are definitely 10 or 15 things I always get at the grocery store, and I'll vary and be bad or something like on the other stuff or whatever. But so the body responds really well. The mind responds really well to having the same foods at the same time of day.
It's not just that. It's the fact that the dietary diversity as a hunter-gatherer was probably a great thing, right? Because there are 50,000 edible plants around the world. And that was essentially the buffet that we consumed, and that ultimately led to the evolution of our brains. Today, most of our calories come from 3 plants: wheat, corn, and rice. And our supermarket aisles are lined with ultra-processed foods made of these relatively nutrient-poor plants. And we're eating them. I mean, studies show that 60% of the calories that we consume today come from ultra-processed foods.
Wow.
And so in the modern supermarket, diversity, I think, is not a good idea. I think what you really want to do is create a shopping list for yourself and buy these foods regularly. Now, you can cheat. That's not the end of the world. Like if you go and you buy that bag of chips that you want, or that, pint of ice cream occasionally, like, it's not going to kill you. But on the other hand, what I want people to be aware of is that these foods are designed for overconsumption. So
true.
And I've been there, right? Like, I've bought a pint of ice cream, the healthiest pint of ice cream that I could find, and I put it in my freezer, and then I'll go to it occasionally, and I'll be like, okay, I just want like 1 spoon of this ice cream, and then I'm going to put it back, right? I'll take a spoon, I'll put it back, I'll walk away from the fridge, I'll walk back to the fridge, I'll take the same spoon, and I'll eat more ice cream until that pint is gone.
Yeah.
because these foods are hyper palatable. They they literally send off the equivalent of like the 4th of July fireworks in your brain when you eat them. And so that's why I think it's better to just keep those foods out of your shopping cart than to put them in your cart, because if they're in your cart, they're as good as in your stomach. And you can totally eat them. Like, it's not a moral failure, but I just want people to have like, I want it to be informed consent so that you know what you're getting into. You know that these foods are designed for overconsumption.
Can we guess the 10 things?
Yeah, this will be fun.
Okay. Salmon, wild caught salmon.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yes.
Avocado.
Ding, ding, ding.
Blueberries.
Yep.
LA, baby.
Wow.
Come on. Like dark leafy green.
Kale.
Dark leafy greens. Okay. You got 4.
Okay.
Kale falls under dark leafy greens. Actually, kale kind of transcends 2 categories, but
so there's categories.
Well, there's like 2 all of the foods kind of represent categories.
Okay.
But I highlight the individual foods to make it like really simple.
Okay.
So I think you're up to 5.
Okay.
Or 4? Was that 4?
This one I
That's
don't
4.
know, but I'm curious. What do you think? Ghee?
No.
Okay. That's why I didn't. That wasn't my answer. I wasn't looking at you.
Kristen, mouth it to me.
I know,
so we don't like
okay, good.
nuts.
Yes.
Oh,
Boom.
good one.
Nuts are good.
But what nuts are not good?
Yeah. Let's talk about nuts.
Well, you want to be careful that if you're getting roasted, that they're dry roasted. Usually, quote unquote roasted nuts are coated in a varnish of grain and seed oil and sugar sometimes.
They're sugar. Right? Like my dad would always get those roasted nuts.
Damn,
I'm like,
that's
Dad,
so fucking good.
This can't be good for you.
Dads eat the best shit. My dad had the best fucking food.
Cool Ranch Dorito. He's like, get me a bowl of the Cool Ranch and then split it, and then the other side of the bowl.
My dad would buy like baguettes.
Oh yeah.
We like lived in Ohio. He would buy fucking baguettes and bring them home.
Wow.
It's like
spread like orange and red
even know.
cheeses on it. You know that like fancy cheese that was made of
so good.
chemicals.
I bet. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
talk about hyperpalatable.
Yes, we had
hyper.
5. We had nuts.
Nuts that's 5, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sweet potatoes, like some sort of starch that's good. Like
like
a
good one.
Yam or there's a
no
too sure.
Fuck. I'm perplexed. What's in your fridge? Eggs.
Yeah. Boom.
Yeah.
6.
Good one.
Pasture raised eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eggs?
What is it about? I freaking
what
love eggs.
about
I think I
eggs?
eat too many eggs.
She drinks them raw.
I've done that. You just want to be. You don't want to do. You don't do that. I've done that.
I'm like,
You're a dude. You're a dude. Literally.
what are you fucking Popeye?
You don't want to consume raw egg yolks.
Spinach.
Are good.
It's good for you?
Well, they could be good. Yeah. But raw egg whites, you want to be careful. It can lead to a biotin deficiency, which can mess with your hair, skin, and nails.
Oh shit! I'm not doing that.
Yeah, no raw eggs, no raw whites.
Okay.
Okay, so that's 6, right?
Yeah, but actually, it's interesting why.
yes.
So eggs, when an embryo is first developing, the first structure to develop is the nervous system, which includes the brain. So literally, an egg yolk is packaged by nature to literally contain all of the ingredients required to grow a healthy brain. Yeah.
That's so cool.
That's
Cool
why
and nasty.
And nasty.
and nasty.
Cool and nasty.
but egg yolks, they contain literally. I mean, the most choline is so important, and egg yolks are probably the best source of dietary choline. Choline's really important in terms of creating neuronal cell membranes.
Wow.
Yeah, really important, and it's also the precursor to. It's one of the building blocks to acetylcholine, which is one of the most important neurotransmitters involved in learning and memory, and it's actually one of the 2 neurotransmitters that is affected by Alzheimer's disease. So eggs, very good. Very healthy.
Why are some like the Bel Campo yolks are like golden?
Yeah,
like
why are some
orangey
yolks
golden,
different?
and then others you're like,
Some are bouncy too. You know what I mean?
oh yeah, I
Just
know
like
what you
really
mean.
like.
You can tell the healthiness, the health quality of an egg by how thick the shell is.
Oh
Yeah, if you go and get like a pasture raised egg, you'll notice that the shell
harder, right?
Yeah, I mean it's like so hard. You got to like really.
dino
It's like a
egg.
dino.
Yeah. Whereas a really cheap egg, like a conventional egg, usually they're white. Although I don't think that white has any bearing on the health. Color has any bearing on the quality of an egg. But conventionally, you'll usually find white eggs. They're the cheapest in the supermarket. Their shells are so thick because the chicken was essentially malnourished. And
Thin.
Yeah. Thin. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. The eggshells are super thin.
Wow.
And and you'll also notice that the egg yolk is very pale in comparison.
I
to
know.
and that's because of the presence of carotenoids that are found.
Carotenoids.
Yeah.
What's that? Because they're eating grain.
because the chickens
like
that are
dead
pasture
chickens.
raised are eating bugs. They're chowing down on grass. They're eating whatever chickens eat. Whereas chickens that are fed the conventional diet are just basically force-fed corn. And corn has next to no carotenoids, if any. But yeah, they get these from the grass that they
I
eat.
didn't know that when you crack an egg, and I always do it on a flat surface, but you should do it on a flat surface because if you do it on like an edge or like a bowl, the salmonella lives on the outside of the shell. So it could get into the egg.
Damn,
That's how
good
you would get
one.
it. Isn't that a good one? This
Yeah.
is a PSA.
Listen up, almost 30.
Sorry, I had to say it.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so we're up to like
8?
6.
I think
7?
no, we had 7.
I think 6.
Okay.
It's like
We can go through them all.
He's like, you're killing
he's
it.
like, get me the fuck out of here. He's like, I can't play this fucking game all night.
I like
but
it.
we like to win.
I just need one more minute.
An oil.
Like goji berry. Oh no, that's. Saying goji berries are like chia seeds or hemp seeds.
Well,
like a seed.
you were close with the first
Goji
guess.
berries.
Well, they're not goji berries.
I already said blueberries.
Oh, you already said blueberries.
Yeah.
All right, so no, they were.
Come on.
Yeah, no.
Raspberries.
I think that's the only berry.
Yeah, it's the only berry. But again, that kind of represents a category. So, like, I mean, in the book,
Oh.
you can switch it up by going for strawberries, which all berries are good for you. They're all
dirty
low sugar.
ones though that are like really you have to be really careful about getting you have to get
Yes.
organic.
Yeah, you want
Part
to
of the
make.
dirty dozen. I
Yes.
believe. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to make
all
sure.
berries.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
wanna make
you're
sure.
right because you're eating it. You're eating the skin as well.
Mhm.
Good one. Okay, I think
I'm going through the produce aisle in my
No,
head.
I'm going through your pantry and I don't know any others.
Broccoli.
Oh, that's dark
No.
leafy greens, right?
This is not a dark leafy green.
Oh, what you've talked about, grass-fed beef.
Yeah, so you got 2. Broccoli is 1, and grass-fed beef
hit
is
it.
yeah.
I think is
Boom.
that all?
No, we got 2 more. I think.
This is also a test for you.
Yeah.
So,
It is a test,
No,
yes.
Don't fuck
literally.
it up.
Okay, tell us the other ones. I don't want to torture you.
We got okay. Well, you got to keep guessing.
Okay. You want to? Okay.
Okay.
We'll guess I'll fucking pay. Oh,
So we do-
turmeric.
No, it's not a genius food. I mean,
that's not
it's a genius
food.
spice, but it's not a genius food.
But,
That's your book. That's your second book.
Yeah, exactly.
welcome.
Genius spices.
Fucking A. You got sweet potato. We didn't get that. I want to say quinoa.
No,
like, is there a grain?
No
no.
grains.
There's no essential grain. The vast majority of the time that
Olive
our
oil?
brains were evolving, we didn't have access to grains. Olive oil, yeah.
Yes.
Good job.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, and then I was
You were
like,
going to
oh.
say, and you were like, I don't know about any oil, but yeah.
We have one more.
You should have gone with your gut.
Wait,
girl.
why? So olive oil, I haven't been using as much
We
lately.
use avocado oil.
I use
We already-
avocado
we already
oil.
said avocado.
But
What are your thoughts on olive oil?
yeah, why?
Compared to avocado oil?
Or just like
Avocado
Oils.
oil has a very favorable fat profile. It's predominantly monounsaturated, but the fat profile of extra virgin olive oil is also very good. But the star, like the MVP in the extra virgin olive oil bottle, are actually not the fats, but the polyphenols that are very high in extra virgin olive oil. It's the highest of any oil, and avocado oil essentially doesn't have any. So
Interesting.
it's a missed opportunity if you're using avocado oil instead of extra virgin
Okay.
olive oil.
Damn.
I just do it because of the heat. Like, I guess you can like heat up avocado oil a little bit higher than olive oil.
It's actually
I don't know.
I know.
Yeah.
I've heard that too. It's
I
just
don't know,
funny to
man.
hear you say it.
I'm like, but like when I hear something, I'll always remember.
I know. When
And
it's related to food, I'll never forget
yeah, I'm
it.
like, oh,
Swear to
gotta
God.
use avocado oil. when
So your
I hear
last
that.
one's probably kombucha. Just kidding.
No.
I know.
What
just
is it?
kidding.
Is it dairy?
No.
No,
Please
it's
God,
not
don't
dairy.
say it's fun.
It's not dairy. I'm pretty sure I know the one that you haven't mentioned yet.
Okay.
Hopefully, in your book.
Well, I'll give you a hint. It's one of the. It's the only food of the genius foods that's actually made by manufacturers, typically,
Oh.
Interesting.
like produced. Well, I guess you could kind of say that. No, you can kind of say that extra virgin olive oil is produced, but
Almond milk?
no.
No. Produced. What is it?
I'll give you another hint. People tend to
Does it
be
rhyme with?
people tend to be very happy about hearing this because it's considered like a treat.
Chocolate.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
I was like, bacon.
Dark chocolate bacon.
I was like, whoopie pies.
What percentage
pies,
of dark
yeah.
chocolate?
Like 85% or above.
Wow.
It's I mean, the good thing about 85% or above is that obviously there's less sugar in it, but more than that, it's about the bar being less hyperpalatable. Chocolate is a pretty fatty food, and you know, when you have more sugar in that bar, it just tilts that scale where at a certain point there's the combination of sugar and fat, and the bar becomes something that you just want to consume the whole bar.
Yeah.
Whereas an 85% or a 90% bar, you know, you get that chocolate taste, but it's, you know, you're satiated after 1 square, 2 squares.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Word.
So what is it about the chocolate that is it for a specific part? Like, is it
the cacao?
Is it the happier? Is it the, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, cacao is one of the top sources of polyphenols. So it's really dense in these compounds that are really beneficial in terms of gut bacteria. They make them very happy, those little critters that live in your large intestine, which we now know is intricately related to healthy brain function, although the details have yet to sort of be unraveled by science, but it's the gut-brain axis. And so, you know, chocolate is a really rich source of these polyphenols. It's one of the top sources of magnesium, actually, which is very important. 50% of people don't consume enough magnesium. And magnesium is this really important mineral we need to consume a fairly large amount of every single day. It's called a macro mineral for that reason, along with sodium. You know, it's something that we really need to, you know, almost today go out of our way to consume an adequate amount of. And it's so important in the body. It's involved in everything from DNA repair to energy generation. And, you know, if it's as easy as eating a little bit more dark chocolate, why not? And then it's also, you know, in chocolate, there are these flavanols, which fall under the umbrella of polyphenols, but they've been shown in various trials to actually boost everything from working memory to athletic performance. So very powerful stuff.
Speaking of like athletes, do you think that like there's a possibility? Because I just remember like, you know, athletes they would get like pizzas after their, you know, after their games. And, you know, there's really not this connection between nutrition and training them at like a collegiate level. I know it's happening with Tom Brady a little bit with what he's kind of doing with his meal stuff, but
and a lot of people in the NBA are actually going plant-based.
Yeah.
Interesting. Some are doing keto. But the thing is, when you're a professional athlete, you have a much greater ability to dispose of glucose, essentially. I mean, first of all, you've got more skeletal muscle. You're well-trained. And after a workout, your muscles essentially pull sugar from the blood. So, I mean, if you're working out at the level of a professional athlete, yeah, you can get away with having some pizza. That's not to say that you can still suffer the ultimate consequences of having chronically elevated insulin throughout the day.
I'm thinking like the brain function, though.
Absolutely.
Too,
well, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you know, in the post-workout window, you require less insulin by your pancreas to essentially clear the same number of carbohydrates because of something called insulin-independent glucose uptake. Your muscles basically become a sponge, whereas normally your pancreas secretes insulin to basically push glucose into your muscle tissue, into your liver, and into your fat tissue. But in the post-workout window, and if you're exercising really intensely, constantly, you have a greater ability to push that sugar into a functional and beneficial place, i.e. your muscle, to help you power you through your next workout with less of a requirement of insulin. So you're actually stimulating insulin less. But that doesn't make these foods, you know, especially, you know, when talking about pizza and things like that, good for you. It's just that these athletes have sort of a greater, I guess, leeway to cope with them at the, you know, on a physiological level. For most people, you know, after a workout, I think that's the best time to consume sweet fruit, a sweet potato, a brown rice bowl. If you know, are just waking up first thing in the morning and you eat a dense source of carbohydrate, that's probably not a very good idea.
Because your depleted glycogen stores after a workout, so you can replenish those with the carbohydrate-rich food.
Yeah, when you do high-intensity workout, you're basically burning through all of the stored sugar in your muscle. That doesn't occur during moderate or mild intensity exercise. It's only high-intensity exercise where you hit that threshold. We were talking about this earlier, right? Like, for the first 10 seconds, you're using creatine. And then for 30 to 45 seconds, maybe a minute and a half after that, you're burning through stored sugar. But if it's not at that level of intensity, if it doesn't hit that anaerobic threshold and you're just doing aerobic exercise, you don't use creatine and you don't necessarily use the stored sugar in your muscle. So if you want to be able to eat more carbs, you got to do high intensity exercise.
So in the morning, what do you eat? What do you
recommend? What's your daily food? Like, what's your food diary?
Well, first thing in the morning, I don't eat anything.
So do you intermittent fast? I wanted to ask about fasting.
I do. But a lot of people these days get caught up over the hours. Like, do you do 16 hours? Do you do 12 hours? I say, let's just like simplify this and don't eat for an hour, 2 or 3 after you wake up. Don't eat for 2 to 3 hours before you go to sleep. So essentially extends the fast that you endure every night when you go to sleep. And one of the reasons that that's beneficial is that when you wake up first thing in the morning, your body is in a fat burning state already. You've been fasted for, 8 hours, if not longer. Your insulin is at its basal level. It's like the level at its lowest that it's going to be throughout the day before you start eating. And in the early morning window, just after arising, you have a spike of cortisol. That's, the natural circadian inclination of cortisol is to spike just after you wake up as a means of liberating stored energy in your body to give you the energy to go out and seize the day. It's sort of like your body's own biological caffeine. And that essentially is a fat-burning hormone. Cortisol is the body's chief catabolic hormone. So it's liberating stored fats, it's liberating stored sugars from your liver. It's really powerful as a fat-burning mechanism. So, working out fasted, it's a great way to burn fat. And you also have the added benefit of the fact that when you sleep, that's when another hormone in your body called growth hormone becomes sharply elevated. And that continues to stay elevated so long as you're fasting. In fact, 24 hours of fasting can cause growth hormone to become elevated by about 2,000%.
Wow.
And the role of growth hormone is to preserve lean mass in a fasted state. So in that morning window, you've got cortisol doing what it does best, liberating these stored sugars and fats. And the only way to really interfere with that is to consume a standard American breakfast first thing in the morning. So I like to let cortisol continue to do its job. I'll eat, and cortisol stays elevated, for about 45 minutes after you wake up. So it's not that long of a window. By the time you check your email, check your social media, cortisol is probably already on its way down. It's one of the hormones that actually wakes you up. And so after that, then I'll eat something and I'll eat until I'm totally satiated. I don't ever count calories. But generally one rule that I have set for myself and that I set for readers of my book is that every single day you should eat a huge fatty salad. So just make that a rule for yourself. Every day you got to eat a big salad. And that's because, when you're eating these dark leafy greens, you're getting a bevy of micronutrients that the brain needs to properly function. You're getting a huge hit of fiber, which the microbes that, make up your microbiome really love to ferment. Douse it with extra virgin olive oil, which actually helps those carotenoids, those plant pigments become absorbed by you. You can't, if you're, eating a salad with a fat-free dressing, you're not absorbing any of the most important compounds in those plants. I'll throw some protein on there because again, protein, very satiating, very important in terms of, promoting muscle protein synthesis, especially after a workout. New research out of Rush University shows that people that eat a large bowl of dark leafy greens every day have brains that look 11 years younger on scans. So in terms of reducing cognitive aging, it's pretty probable that dark leafy greens are your brain's best friend.
Wow. Bums me out. I don't feel like I've ever seen my dad eat a salad.
Same.
It's I'll eat a salad that's a Chinese chicken salad. And it's iceberg with fried chicken.
It's like romaine lettuce.
I know.
I know.
Iceberg is the worst.
Iceberg's the worst.
It's also not good for the environment because essentially, think about how much money is spent to transport, iceberg lettuce, which is very nutrient poor. It's essentially just fiber and water.
Oh yeah, that's so true. Wow. Okay, so you have that salad and then what?
And then it depends. So I try to, on an ideal day, I'll try to concentrate my meals I'll try to have 2 meals a day, right? If I am snacking throughout the day, usually it'll be dark chocolate, it'll be nuts, maybe some vegetables, crudité, something like that. When you're eating those kinds of foods, it's totally fine to eat throughout the day. What I'm just being mindful of is making sure that I'm keeping tight reins on my body's insulin production. So after a workout, I might have, that salad might include some rice or a sweet potato, for example, if I had just had a workout, so that I can get that, insulin spike, get those carbs into my muscle where they'll stay until my next workout. But then through the rest of the day, I'm generally, eating pretty low carb. And so nuts, seeds. I've become obsessed recently with, it's a Persian snack. I get like these little Persian cucumbers and you just sprinkle some like salt on the cucumber. It's actually like a very delicious snack, even though it's super simple.
Yeah.
Why are they Persian?
Well, they're Persian cucumbers.
They're like are they thicker, right?
Why are they called Persian?
No, they're really thin. They're super thin.
They're small.
What am I thinking of?
Like little fingers.
Yeah.
Why are they called? Why are they Persian?
I don't know. Maybe that's where they originate. I don't know.
Let's dig on that one.
Honestly.
So you said you stop eating like 3 hours before you go to sleep, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, that's just to extend the fast a little bit, but also because going back to the importance of sleep, our brains undergo these really important custodial processes when we sleep, and this system is still newly discovered. We don't have anywhere near all the answers, but it's thought that insulin might interfere with that cleansing process to some degree.
Mm-hmm. Gives me bad dreams.
Yeah, I do too. I can't really sleep well either.
Yeah, if I eat too close.
Same.
Yeah.
Fucks me up.
Yeah, and there's good research on dietary patterns and sleep. Research shows that people that eat higher fat, low carb diets, and particularly high in fiber, tend to have more deeper and more rejuvenating sleep. They spend, in particular, more time in the slow wave phase of sleep, which is actually when that glymphatic system, which is essentially your brain's dishwasher, when that becomes active. So yeah, I mean, these are all the things that I looked at when writing Genius Foods to come to sort of some kind of unifying theory as to how a person might eat for optimal brain function, as well as preserving it in the long term.
Wow. Last question from me. Is your mom now abiding by Genius Foods? Did she?
To some degree, but not fully. When I first started doing this research and was so enthusiastic about everything I was reading and ketogenic diets and all that stuff, which are essentially very low carbohydrate diets that are now being studied in patients that already have cognitive decline as a potential intervention. Yeah. That in tandem with like my own neuroses around nutrition, I tried to I taught my mom and I tried to put her on a really strict diet, and that was a lot of work actually to do, to like try to shift a parent's diet. I mean, first of all, they're your parent, so they're not that inclined to want to listen to you anyway, totally, as their child, right? But then dementia makes things hard, obviously. Her health aides, are not trained when it comes to, even nutrition basics, like 101 stuff. And at a certain point, you kind of have to like teach and step back. Like I found that I would start to get upset, after a couple months when I would like come to my mom's house and see a bag of chips opened or a box of wheat thins that she had just gone through. And, I didn't want that to affect me emotionally, and I didn't want it to affect the quality time that I started spending with my mom. So at a certain point, I realized, people live the way that they want to live. Ultimately, you can lead a horse to water, as cliche as that sounds, but you can't make the horse drink. And the times that my mom these days is happiest is when she's with me and my younger brothers. And so I didn't want to continue to just be the food Nazi that I could be, that I actually wanted to be because she's my mom. And I was like, okay, Mom, we got to put you on this really strict dietary intervention. And the dietary interventions that are now being studied with patients with dementia are very rigorous protocols. Yeah. The ketogenic diet, I mean, for a young and healthy person is difficult. Imagine taking somebody who's older, set in their ways, has dementia. I mean, it's an impossible diet. Even though the research is very promising, it's just really difficult to get somebody who's in that state to adhere to. And not only that, but diet is just one part of the equation. There's pilot level evidence that when adhering to a diet like that, and you really have to take sort of an all hands on deck approach, optimizing exercise, sleep, things like that. I mean, it would be a full-time job for me to live with my mom and try to control her. And I'm not, I don't want to do that. I don't know. I mean, I'm still building my own career. I care for my mom, but I didn't want to force any of these ideas onto her and affect our relationship in that way. And it's also made me really passionate about prevention and getting this message out to younger people because, these diseases begin in the brain decades before the first symptom. And the time is now. It's not when you already have been diagnosed with dementia. As John F. Kennedy once said, the time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining. So
it's a good one.
Yeah, I obviously can't cite him directly, but I heard somebody else cite him.
I love you.
And
I believe it.
Yeah.
Great John F. Kennedy.
Well, I just realized
you should be like,
that might have made me sound really old.
No, it was a good one.
How old are you?
I'm 35.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's just amazing. So you've learned all of this in the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, last question from me, I just want to talk about Breadhead.
Yeah.
And what's going on?
Breadhead, we're working on that.
Love the name. That's
You
a
love
great
it.
name.
Thank you.
Breadhead.
Have you, is a certain, is Netflix doing, what's going on?
No, we have a film. We have a locked picture on the film. We're fundraising. So anybody listening that wants to get
We can
involved
link it.
in a movie.
Definitely.
The film is great. We ran out of money, essentially.
As you do.
Filmmaking is very difficult.
Yeah.
And we're now hoping to finish it and get it out digitally so that people can watch it online. I mean, we tried to do the festival circuit. It was kind of a nightmare. I mean, some of the feedback we got was shocking. Some of these festivals don't think that dementia prevention's a big enough topic. I'm like, what?
It's cool though, because that can be part of your story.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is a part of your story.
Exactly.
So that's what you add in.
Exactly. So I'm excited to get it out there. I think it's the most important documentary that's out there. It's, vetted in terms of science. The researchers that we have span multiple Ivy League universities, the personal stories there. So I'm very proud of it. We're hoping to finish it. We're hoping to get it out this year. And, for anybody listening that's not familiar with it, it's the first ever dementia prevention film. It's the first ever film focused exclusively on this topic. And we've interviewed all the leading researchers in the field. Everybody from Suzanne de la Monte at Brown University, who coined the term type 3 diabetes to describe Alzheimer's disease, to the leading expert in gluten and autoimmunity. They're all in the film. And it's not just one of these online things that is just a bunch of interviews strung back to back. It's literally it's a movie. And I'm very proud of it. I was hoping that I'd have it out before my book Genius Foods came out, but it just didn't work out that way. And so
it'll come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And the film is, the two projects are very complementary to one another. So obviously in a narrative documentary, you can't get too deep into the science and the prescriptive level advice and things like that. So it's story focused, whereas Genius Foods is told like a story, but it's very prescriptive. It's a guide, with steps and sidebars and tweaks and breakdowns and plans. It's really, I think, very comprehensive.
Cool. Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Can't wait. We'll link it. And people can check it out too. Okay, where can our listeners connect with you?
Definitely find me on Instagram at Max Lugavere. Go to geniusfoodsbook.com to pre-order the book, get some cool bonuses. Facebook. Does anybody use Facebook anymore?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on Facebook.
Our community really uses it.
All right, Max Lugavere on Facebook. And just say what's up. People can go to my website. I'm all over the place.
Great. Yeah, your website is great. Where did you say you lived before? Not that I'm
West
sending
Hollywood,
people.
Right?
WeHo?
WeHo, and then in New York.
And then New York. Cool. Okay. And then the book tour is going to be, are you doing a book tour?
Well, the book comes out, probably going to be out by the time
it'll be out.
This comes out. Yeah.
So it's been out like a week.
Yeah. Publishers aren't investing in book tours these days. It's all, you do TV, you do podcasts.
Yeah, cool.
That's pretty much it.
Okay, cool.
Love it. Okay. Can't find him on book tour.
Well, I want to do a book tour. If you own a bookstore,
you don't need to do it at a bookstore.
I love meeting people.
Do it at a freaking grocery store.
Yeah, have a meetup at a grocery store.
You could.
At like an Erewhon or a Whole Foods. Hello.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
That's at Erewhon. I'll come.
And you know our friend Kelly Levesque?
Yeah, she's amazing. Oh my God.
The best.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
She's our OG.
She's our resident.
Yeah.
Cool.
Advisor. Okay.
We love you guys.
I want to be a resident.
This was great.
Wow.
My brain is about to explode with all this good stuff. And I'm not going to forget. There's like 5 things I'm like not going to forget and now going to take with me to the, like when I, do my grocery shopping 8 times a week like I do. But it's like that type of, and that's what we need. Like our generation, that's what we need. We need like these sticking takeaways that we're like, oh, okay, so we'll never have this ingredient. If I see this ingredient, I'm never going to have that or whatever it is. Like just these sticking things. So I'm excited to.
And it's important to think about, health beyond just how you look. And I think that our group has like evolved beyond that. And it's thinking about health as far as like mental clarity and like
100%.
I mean, that's changed my life. Like how fucking crisp.
Just how you feel,
Yeah.
Like we live in LA and, but I've even felt since moving here that it's more so about like, okay, how am I feeling? I think I've let go of how I look.
Yeah, literally.
I'm like, fuck it.
So
as long as I feel amazing, fuck everyone.
Yeah, and in LA, we're like, hey, I fucking feel good.
Oh, God.
It's my personality that shines. Okay.
All right, Genius Foods, Breadhead. If you have money, let's help make this film finish it.
Yep.
Like, let's do it.
I love it.
Boom.
Max Lugavere, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're the best.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
You're
All
welcome.
right. Subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. Thank you so much. We read every single one of them. Means so much. And then thanks for joining the secret Facebook group. So we'll be talking about this in the secret Facebook group. Yeah. And then we'll keep you posted. We're going to be coming to Chicago.
SF, New York.
Yeah.
We're going to add some cities. We're talking about it. We can tell you right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So email us if you want to be like a representative on the ground and help us with our event. It would mean so much.
All right, guys. We love you.
All right. Love you. Bye. Touching.
And informative.
So informative. We hear so much crazy health stuff. And I love that this is focused on, not the vanity around it, but more optimizing brain health. And Max's story about his mom is so touching.
Yeah.
He tells it so well. It's just a beautiful story. So I love when we hear about people that are doing something for the right reasons.
Yeah.
For the overall responsibility of
Responsibility
health to
like,
consumers.
To consumers, to like our generation, like to the younger people, even kids.
Yeah.
Thinking about it in that sense, because, of course he wants to help his mom, but if we can prevent this from happening, I think it's, something that people need to be thinking about. I think we can live so in the present moment, right? So in the present moment, YOLO.
That's my motto.
Drink champagne and eat chocolate. Fine, it's great, whatever.
Chocolate's on the list.
Oh, it's on the list. Fuck.
Those super fruit
And French
already.
fries. But it's also thinking about, okay, so if
I don't know where you're going.
I'm keeping this.
I know.
I'm keeping it.
I think you should keep. We need to show people that we're normal.
I'm just saying, like,
guys, we're normal. We're not perfect, okay?
we are literally on one.
We're on
anyway,
one.
I'm talking
been a long
about
night.
preventative conversations.
Completely.
Of course, we don't want to look too far into the future, but we want to be thinking about how we want to feel in the future. Is that what I wanted to say?
Yeah, completely. So we love Max. We are so thankful that he gave us Genius Foods to present a comprehensive guide to brain optimization. So you get all of the nutrients information in there, the foods that energize and rejuvenate your brain, all of the things in Genius Foods.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening to the Almost 30 podcast. We love you so much. If you have suggestions for guests, topics, anything like that, please let us know. Again, we're going to have meetups around the country coming soon, Chicago and Toronto on deck.
Thanks for subscribing and reviewing. That's sort of how we keep in touch with you guys and sort of see the love that you have for us. So that means a lot to us. So thanks for subscribing and reviewing, and thanks for sharing with your friends. We've grown from word of mouth 100%. So it's all because of you.
Totally. And you can visit our website, almost30podcast.com. You can get all of our sponsor codes. Thank you to our sponsors for this episode. You guys are the bomb. And, we provide you with all of these brands. maybe it can be overwhelming to some people, but truly we love them so much. And we just want to give you options. We want to give you discounts. We want to like expose you to brands that you might not know. So we love you. We love you. Have a great week and we'll see you next week.
Bye.